The Book of Judges paints a bleak picture of ancient Israel. It was a time of tribalism and chaos. There was no king to unite the people. Moral decay was rampant. The Israelites often abandoned their covenant with God. They turned to the worship of idols. This spiritual void left them vulnerable to internal strife and external threats. The story of the Levite and his concubine unfolds against this backdrop of lawlessness and despair. It serves as a chilling example of the depths to which human behavior can sink. The land was divided into 12 tribes. Each tribe was largely autonomous. There was little sense of national unity. The story of Judges 19 highlights the fragility of society in the absence of a strong, just ruler. The story begins with the Levite's concubine leaving him. She returns to her father's house in Bethlehem. The reason for her departure is not explicitly stated. It is implied that there was some sort of disagreement or conflict between them. The Levite's journey to retrieve her reveals the complexities of their relationship. It hints at underlying tensions that will ultimately contribute to the tragic events that follow.
The Levite sets out for Bethlehem with his servant and 2 donkeys. The journey takes him through the rugged terrain of the Ephraimite hill country. This journey symbolizes my attempt to reconcile with my concubine. It also foreshadows the perilous journey we will later undertake together. The landscape itself reflects the harsh and unforgiving nature of the times.
Upon arriving at his father-in-law's house, the Levite is greeted warmly. He is invited to stay for several days. The father-in-law urges him to reconcile with his daughter. He showers him with hospitality. He tries to persuade him to remain longer. This initial hospitality contrasts sharply with the horrific reception they will later receive in Gibeah. After several days, the Levite finally decides to return home. His father-in-law continues to urge him to stay. He offers him further hospitality. However, the Levite insists on departing. This decision marks a turning point in the story. It sets them on the path towards the tragic events that await them in Gibeah.
As the day draws to a close, we reach Jebus, also known as Jerusalem. I decide against staying overnight in Jebus. I have concerns about the safety of staying in a city of foreigners. This decision, seemingly motivated by caution, ironically leads us to the far more dangerous city of Gibeah. We continue our journey as darkness falls. We eventually arrive near Gibeah, a city belonging to the tribe of Benjamin. We are weary from our travels and in need of shelter.
They enter the city square, hoping to find someone who will offer them hospitality for the night. This seemingly simple desire for rest will have devastating consequences. As they wait in the square, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim approaches them. The old man welcomes the Levite and his concubine into his home. He offers them food and a place to rest. This initial hospitality creates a false sense of security. It masks the depravity that lies beneath the surface of Gibeah's seemingly peaceful facade.
Please come in. You're welcome to stay in my home. I will provide food and a place for you to rest.
As the evening progresses, a group of wicked men from the city surrounds the house. They demand that the old man bring out the Levite so they can sexually assault him. This horrific demand reveals the true nature of the men of Gibeah. It foreshadows the violence that is about to unfold.
Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have our way with him.
The old man attempts to dissuade the mob. He offers them his virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine instead. This desperate offer highlights the extreme danger of the situation. It raises profound moral and ethical questions about the choices people make under duress.
No, my friends, do not be so vile. Here, take my virgin daughter and this man's concubine. Do with them what you will, but do not do such a disgraceful thing to this man.
The Levite, in a shocking act of cowardice and self-preservation, pushes his concubine out the door to the mob. This act of betrayal seals the concubine's tragic fate. Section 5, A Night of Terror, the concubine's fate.
The men of Gibeah seize the concubine.
They subject her to a night of horrific abuse and sexual violence. The darkness of the night mirrors the depravity of their actions. The concubine's cries go unanswered. Her suffering is unimaginable.
Throughout the night, the men continue their brutal assault.
The concubine endures unimaginable pain and humiliation. Her cries for help are lost in the darkness. Her life is slowly ebbing away.
As dawn breaks, the men finally leave her.
She manages to crawl back to the old man's house. She collapses at the doorway, broken and dying. The rising sun casts a harsh light on the horrific scene. It reveals the full extent of the brutality she has endured.
The Levite emerges from the house. He finds his concubine lying at the threshold.
Section 6. The Levite's Grievous Act, a cry for justice.
The concubine does not respond. She is dead.
The Levite places her body on his donkey. He returns to his home. Upon arriving, he takes a knife and dismembers her body into 12 pieces.
He then sends one piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel.
This shocking act is a cry for justice. It is also a calculated move to incite outrage and action against the men of Gibeah. The dismembered body serves as a gruesome symbol of the broken state of Israel. It represents the fragmentation and moral decay that has consumed the nation. Section 7. A nation divided, the Israelites' response. The Israelites are horrified by the Levites' act. They gather together to discuss the atrocity committed in Gibeah. The gruesome message unites them in outrage. It forces them to confront the moral decay that has festered within their society.
The tribes demand that the Benjamites hand over the perpetrators of the crime. They are determined to see justice served. They are prepared to take action against their own brethren to uphold the law.
The Benjamites refuse to comply. They defend the men of Gibeah. This refusal sets the stage for a bloody civil war. Section 8. The spectre of civil war, a nation on the brink. The ensuing civil war is brutal and devastating. The Israelites, initially outnumbered, suffer heavy losses. They are forced to seek divine guidance before renewing their attack. After seeking God's counsel, the Israelites eventually defeat the Benjamites. They almost completely annihilate the tribe. Only 600 Benjamite men survive. The Israelites are then faced with the dilemma of how to preserve the tribe of Benjamin. They devise a plan to allow the surviving Benjamites to abduct wives from the city of Jabesh Gilead. This desperate measure highlights the complexities of the situation. Section 9. Moral and ethical dilemmas, a timeless tragedy. The story of the Levite and his concubine raises profound moral and ethical dilemmas. The Levite's actions, while ostensibly aimed at seeking justice, are deeply problematic. His willingness to sacrifice his concubine to protect himself raises questions about his moral character.
The old man's offer of his daughter and the concubine to the mob is another ethically challenging moment. His desperate attempt to prevent violence raises questions about the limits of self-preservation and the value of human life.
The men of Gibeah's depraved actions represent the darkest aspects of human nature. Their brutality and lack of remorse highlight the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of moral decay. Section 10. Echoes through time, relevance and reflection. The story of the Levite and his concubine remains relevant today. It serves as a timeless reminder of the dangers of unchecked violence and the importance of justice and accountability. The story's themes of sexual violence, exploitation, and the vulnerability of marginalized groups continue to resonate in contemporary society. It compels us to examine the ways in which these issues manifest in our own time. The story also highlights the importance of strong leadership and the rule of law in maintaining a just and peaceful society. The dark tale of Judges 19 serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to learn from the past and to strive for a more just and compassionate future. It reminds us that the pursuit of justice and the protection of the vulnerable are ongoing challenges that demand our constant attention and action.